All right, everyone. We start off today talking about the absolute shit show that is the internet at the moment. If you're looking up anything politics and news related, it's basically all a bunch of people piling in for a free-for-all over the Charlie Kirk assassination. And some things are more prevalent than others, but there's a lot of propaganda, there's a lot of botting, there's a lot of shilling. There's a lot of whataboutism, there's water muddying and so forth. The water muddying, I think, is the most interesting because keep in mind, we know the likely motives of the shooter. It's pretty safe to say that when you say catch this fascist and stuff like that, there's probably a connection to, the murder because those were literally engraved on the gun casings, the bullet casings. So muddying the water takes the form of saying, well, yeah, we're not 100% sure, even though we kind of are. So, there's good and bad on both sides, and, so we'll keep an open mind. I noticed that it's only leftists mainly that are saying this. That's because, it should be fairly obvious. Charlie Kirk is a prominent conservative activist and debater. And you have like Antifa style messages on the shooter's weapon. I mean on the bullets in the weapon. It's fairly straightforward. Just saying, or they're muddying the waters over what one of his friends said, which is, well, he was the only leftist in his family. And then the right has responded, and this is kind of a stretch at this point. We're not sure of this, although we're still, you've got the autism of 4chan investigating this, so we're going to get more answers probably from the internet than from the FBI. Just saying, sometimes things get covered up, but in situations like this, you have a massive pile-in of very, very skilled and intelligent people that have nothing else that they want to do but sit up and drink Monster Energy drinks, shitpost, and look for some of the over 20,000 people that have been documented and are currently being doxxed for celebrating his death. And the left is pissed about that. The hypocrisy is very sheer right now as well. You got a lot of shilling, which is you've got people. I mean, even Stephen King had to issue an apology, a half apology the other day at this point because it's become an explosive situation. The shilling, of course, is people who quite clearly, I mean, a lot of these are paid influencers like Brooklyn Dad Defiant, Harry Sisson, Dabrowski, people like that. And they're literally paid to tweet anyway. So they're definitely going to dogpile something that's been trending for like, the last few days. They're definitely going to dogpile it. By the way, notice the Grok response with regards to the shooter, for some reason, originally listed him as having been Charlie Kirk as having been killed on September 11th instead of September 10th. I don't know. Grok has flubbed this one particularly. Then you have the whataboutism. Well, yeah, I know that a likely leftoid decided to kill a prominent conservative influencer, but conservatives can get violent too. Firstly, that has nothing to do with this particular incident. Secondly, who cares? Yeah, people can get violent. They don't have to be left wing to be violent. It just helps. It helps to be a commie if you intend to go postal and shoot a bunch of people or something like that, because then you've got your justification. You can claim that you were fighting for the working class or something like that. And the whataboutism is pretty sheer too. So it's like, hey, leftoid, violent, killed Charlie Kirk, and you're celebrating it. Yeah, but the right wing celebrated when this person died. And then you say, yes, okay. Did they get assassinated? Were they a family man with several kids that got his head blown off his neck blown out for absolutely no reason, other than ideological constructs? And then you got the other thing. I've noted this. It's very disingenuous how the left is approaching analyzing this anyway, because they keep conflating physical acts of violence with so-called hateful speech. Right-winger. says something that is deemed hateful by people who are, well, generally they're just NIMBYist, liberals. They're the ones that like to pretend to be offended the most. It's not even the left as much these days. It's the NIMBYist liberals mostly more than anything else. It's like the Schumer and Pelosi types, the people with the NPR cups. They pretend to be offended, usually on others' behalf. Oh, my poor little minority, and stuff like that. But it's disingenuous. Right-wingers typically had been cancel culture, great example. Cancel culture years ago was almost entirely directed at people on the right or at least outside of the left. They tried to cancel me as well, and I'm not a conservative, for example. This happened for years and years with the full will of the Biden administration and under the nose of the first Trump administration, and certainly as far back at least as Barack Obama. It happening that entire time, and with Intel and big tech and stuff, censoring people, debanking people, and so forth. This was almost always predicated on simply the person had the wrong opinion. So their life was ruined, and in some cases they got doxxed. Some people got hit. Look at Richard Spencer. That time he got punched out. He was just sitting there. He was just standing there talking. I don't like Spencer particularly, and I think that he's wrong on a number of issues. But he was the one that got assaulted. Now he's become like a Bidenite liberal, or I don't exactly know. It seems to change day by day. Never mind. But right-wingers were debanked and censored and harassed and confronted in public and assaulted and in some cases killed simply for what they were saying. Charlie Kirk got killed for what he is saying, for example. The left-wingers that are currently getting canceled with, the mass doxing of several tens of thousands of people, that's just a drop in the bucket of what's to come, by the way. These people are just getting fired for in many cases, these people are advocating more violence. Yeah, Charlie Kirk's gone. Yeah, well, who's next? And stuff like that. Naturally, a business is not going to want to be associated with you. And the second level of hypocrisy is that when people on outside of the left complained about the doxing campaigns and the censorship and the debanking and pointed out the hypocrisy of leftists effectively partnering with large multinational corporations, when the shoe is on the other foot, all of a sudden they're complaining. Oh, you special, say the left would say years ago, oh, you special snowflake, haha, you should have known better than to open your app now, shouldn't you, young man? I guess that's the same ethos they apply to Charlie Kirk, because it's a perfectly okay to shoot people if you disagree with them. That seems to be what is, peddled. Meanwhile, there's a counterattack. Doesn't involve violence. It's not involving threats of violence, mostly. We'll get to that in a second. And then, people get fired. A boo-hoo. You're openly advocating for terroristic acts, which is what this is, by the way. We'll be talking, by the way, separately about Cassandra McDonald. Her home got attacked the other night, actually, with fireworks. Actually, we're presuming that's probably a left-wing attack too. This is their MO. One thing I will say to people on the right, and again, not being a conservative, so you can ignore me if you want, but I speak from a politically pragmatic standpoint. Now is not the time to belly up to the bar and start making threats against a bunch of leftoids. What you need to do is show the American population, which by and large now is independent and doesn't consider itself conservative or liberal in any way at all. You need to show them, look, there's a big difference between the two groups. It's maybe partially a false dichotomy, but for colloquial purposes and for pragmatic purposes, you're going to have to go with that. I realize that there's no such thing as a dichotomy in U.S. politics. I realize that. I'm intelligent enough to know that, but many, many people still see it in terms of black and white, D and R, okay? So you're going to have to explain it to them in terms that are actually going to be understandable. Language matters. Here's the left. They're shooting people. They're celebrating about it, and they're telling people that they wish that there would be more shootings and beatings and things like that. So we're going to be the sane, responsible individuals who are simply saying, hey, political violence ain't okay. You want to have a heated debate or something. The reason they killed Charlie Kirk was because they feared debating him. They killed him in part because he was so effective. Now, did Charlie Kirk ever go out and kick a puppy across the street like a football, or he had rape victims in his dungeon downstairs? It's like, no, he didn't do anything violent. He got killed simply for speaking. And really, it's the First Amendment that the left fears the most. They know that in an open debate they will generally lose because their ideas have been tested and failed and are easily cut apart 9 times out of 10. So they don't want somebody like Charlie Kirk who's willing to meet them on their own territory in many cases and debate them and can do it ably. They fear that far more than they fear some dude with a Gadsden flag shirt who carries his rifle to work and says, I'm gonna kill these liberals. I'm not afraid of you. And they're not afraid of you at all, because if you do pop off, then they'll say, look, right-wing violence, gun violence. One thing they're really pissed about is the fact that Tyler Robinson used a bolt-action rifle instead of an AR-15. That's about all. Peace out.